So if you could be here around 9, that would be great. Okay?
Well, listen here.
Hello, and welcome to 90 Day Fiancé MK. I'm Mr. O, and today, Miss H and I will be discussing Season 2, Episode 20 of 90 Day Fiancé The Other Way. On this episode, Kenny and Armando get a homophobic yet boilerplate marriage rejection. Jihoon braces for a visit from Elicia. Tim seems to be looking for a lot of excuses. Brittany tries to give Yazan a haircut. Jenny and Sumit meet a lawyer with a new idea. And Ari's parents pass their judgment on Ethiopia. As always, we'll have our Students of the Week, class dances, and life lessons. We'll be back again next week to talk the next episode. If you like what you hear, give us a 5-star rating and subscribe. And if you also watch Love After Lockup, you should listen to our other free podcast, Love After Lockup MK. All right, thanks for listening. Stay safe and enjoy.
Hello, Mr. O.
Hello, Miss H.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I don't know, like we're I don't know, getting along, you know. I'm getting ready to, everything's closing back down.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, it's going to be that way.
Yeah, it's going to be that way.
Yeah, that's really funny because last night I was like, we have to go to Korean barbecue because it's going to get shut down next week.
Yeah, that is not one that you can really do outdoor dining wise. Can't do takeout, can't do outdoor dining with Korean barbecue.
No. Well, if we get shut down, we're not going to have even
outdoors either.
Yeah.
Oh, see, we had our guy he went down. He was like, restaurants are going from 75 to 50. And I was like, what's the point of that, man? Like, What is this?
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to get started with, speaking of updates, a rumor roundup. So this is based on our social media and other rumors. We don't want to say that these are 100% true, but rumors floating around the social media universe.
2-minute rumor roundup.
Okay, so Anfisa dumped her man Leo after both accused the other of cheating. She's currently working on herself and has recently gotten braces. Nicole is trying to prove her and Yazan are still together, and she is being accused of taking over his social media accounts and paying tributes to herself. Luis has been rumored to have been deported last month. He had no sponsor since divorcing from Molly. Ashley and Jay are officially done. Ashley says she lied about their status before because she had felt stupid about being cheated on again. Steven and Olga have also officially split after 1 year of marriage. Dean, Tariq's brother and Pillow Talk contributor, and his Filipino girlfriend Regine are expecting their first child. Paul and Karini have reportedly dropped their restraining orders against one another. They have posted family pictures that clearly show a baby bump for Karini. Rosemary has opened a new bakery in the Philippines, and she's looking pretty amazing. Meanwhile, it's rumored that Ed is filming for some unknown show. Devin's daughter Drusilla has been diagnosed with Bell's palsy and is showing some improvements. She is reportedly moved as she was fearful that Jihoon had given her address to a random fan in California who was sending Amazon packages to Devin on Jihoon's behalf. File this under obvious, but Larissa has come out on record saying that the producers encourage them to confront each other on the tell-alls and their future casting is dependent on it. Mike and Natalie, Rebecca and Zied, and Tariq and Hazel will be gracing our screens once more in the new 90 Day Fiancé Season 8 that premieres next month.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh man, so I'm going all the way back to the first one. Anfisa's trying to get on that Brittany braces money. She wants that the braces are going to increase the
I don't think
gold diggerness.
But maybe I can see that. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on, man.
Yeah. Yeah, there always is a lot of stuff going on. But, you know, where there wasn't a whole lot going on, or at least progress, was Kenny and Armando.
Yeah.
So Kenny and Armando are going back to the marriage office to get the official letter of denial of their marriage petition so they can take that letter to the Human Rights Office. They are in the car with Hannah, and Armando explains to Hannah that they might not be allowed to get married. Hannah says that the people are mean and ugly tricksters for not letting them get married. They get to the office where Armando translates the letter to Kenny, which says that same-sex marriage is not celebrated in order to preserve the human race. Kenny is really disturbed by the wording, and he's concerned about the success of the fight they have ahead of them. They are unsure what to do if the human rights group will be unable to help them. Hannah innocently asks if the lady allowed them to get married as they are leaving the office, and Armando says no. All right, if they can't get married in Mexico, why do you think they don't want to try in the U.S.?
So it seems like the biggest thing for the U.S. is Hannah. They don't want to move Hannah to the U.S.
Okay.
And they want to leave her in Mexico. Primarily, it seems like because she doesn't speak any English.
Yeah, but she's still so young. And there's so many, EL programs and stuff like that, especially if they move just across the border.
I'm sure if Hannah came to the States now, by the time either of us talked to her, she wouldn't even be ESOL anymore.
Right.
No doubt. But I think there's also that family connection too. I don't think you want to move there so she can't really see her family very much anymore. They moved a couple hours away, but I mean, if they moved to the States, would they just move, would they just move to like a border town? Would they just be across the border? Or would they go all the way back to Florida where Kenny is?
Well, I feel like they have two options because it kind of sounded like they were about an hour away from the border to begin with. Because it kind of sounded like, what they were going to do in the meantime is just do visa runs. So I kind of feel like, well, just continue doing that. But then I guess the issue is that Kenny can't work and contribute to the household. He can't work in Mexico. But then at the same time, we've kind of talked about this before. How is Kenny going to work in Mexico if he doesn't speak any Spanish? Like zero Spanish. Zero Spanish,
right? Yeah. That's the other language issue. I mean, they had to read literally everything to him. Like he didn't understand what he has to keep asking what Hannah says. Yeah. Like which I meant was convenient for the producers because that meant that Armando had to read the letter out loud.
Right.
So like we got to hear what was on the letter, which is just obviously the bigotry bothers me and it's such bullshit, right? But
But the reason, preserving the human race,
it doesn't even make any sense.
No.
That's what that got me. It's like the insult, you just being bigoted. You're going to say some crap about, because you can't preserve the human race with two same-sex marriages. It's like, do you also deny marriages to women in their 60s? Like they're not allowed to get married either because they're not going to promote the human race. Right. Yeah, they're not having any babies either.
Or people like me who just have made a conscious decision to never be a parent.
Do they check your medical records and be like, sorry, you had a vasectomy, can't get married anymore because you're not propagating the human race? Like, no. It's absurd to put that on there. It's ridiculous.
Right. Because that isn't the only motivation for getting married. Yes, it's traditionally a big piece of it, but it's not the only reason why people get married.
And it's not the only reason the state sanctions it. Right, because that's what they're asking for is a state sanction of the marriage, right? And that's for a whole host of other reasons besides because we're having children together.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
it definitely totally bothered me, and so I wanted to put that out there. So, you got all the marriages this time. Anyway.
Oh gosh, yeah.
All the marriage lawyers, family law, all went to you this week.
Oh no, not so much. Baby and Ari, they didn't have anything.
They didn't have any family, but Jenny and Sumit had family law stuff.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
So I'm just saying, those are all the ones that were fighting with lawyers, is what I'm saying.
Oh, sure.
So I'm going to go with Tim. So Tim, after a weekend in Colombia, Tim's mom and his Aunt Carmen are headed back to the States. So Tim and Robin go to the cafe to debrief. Robin says she loves it here in Medellin, but hopes that Melyza understands all that Tim is giving up by coming down here. They kind of rehash a lot of the stuff that already has been discussed to death with this group. And then Tim lets loose about Melyza seeing other people while they were on a break, which they even showed us from last time's segment. They agreed not to talk to Robin about. Robin doesn't really have much of a response to it, partly because Tim lumped it in with the rest of his litany of doubts. But surprisingly, Robin kind of sticks up for Melyza, saying that she may have doubts, but she still loves you. And sometimes maybe what she was doing was she had to see other people to kind of get that, to know which person is right for you. Tim is not convinced and is still uncertain, especially since him having no job and no marriage means that his visa will expire and he'll have to go back to the States. Robin ends up in tears and tells him that she supports whatever decision he makes, Later that day, Melyza hugs Robin as they leave, saying that she appreciates the support Robin had for their relationship. Next up, Tim and Melyza are on their way to a couples counselor to try to further work things out. They tried before and it did help, though obviously not well enough. So they start with the counselor. It's the first time they see him, and they start with the backstory. And at this point, Tim is really feeling stuck about his employment in Colombia, which all the employers are telling him he has to be married before they can give him a job. And then Melyza doesn't want to get married. So blah, blah, blah. So he mentions his idea of his, kind of toying with going back to the States. Melyza says that him going back would show a lack of commitment, and she would not be able to trust him at all if he did go back. The therapist, kind of hears what she's saying, and he kind of thinks that staying in Colombia is the best thing for him, for the relationship. But Tim doesn't see how that can work, how that's going to be able to work, since he can't. All right. So what do you think? Is Tim using the job as an excuse for kind of considering going back? Because it just seemed like this entire episode was Tim doubting literally everything.
I don't think he's using it as an excuse. I definitely feel like he's someone who is unsure, and so it is a safety net for him, absolutely, because he wants to have a backup plan. But I don't think he's really using it as an excuse. I kind of feel like he really does want this to work out. And I kind of felt that way because his mom, and I was not a big fan of Robin in this episode, I feel like his mom really doesn't want them to be together. And she just kind of stopped short of saying it explicitly. And I feel like Tim has kind of defended their relationship. So I don't know. It seems like he wants it to work out. He wants it to happen.
I don't know. See, that's funny because I kind of got almost the total opposite vibe from that conversation. Mm-hmm. Is I kind of got the feeling he was really fishing for her to say, I think you should break up. He kept saying, well, I don't know about this, I don't know about this. And, she saw other people, and he really wanted her to do that. And I don't know if it was because it wasn't what she believed or what, but she was just no, I'm not going to make your decision for you, dude. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you should break up with her. You have to make this decision. Right.
But I kind of feel like for Tim, he said that his mom is one of his best friends, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like that's just him voicing all of his insecurities. I don't necessarily know if it was really him complaining about it so much as him kind of saying, well, I don't know if it'll work out because she saw other people, and I really don't know how I feel about that. And it, and not so much that I think he doesn't really know what he thinks about that. I think it just makes him feel well, maybe she's not as invested in me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's how I took it at least.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, yeah, it's really tricky because it just sounded, like I said, it just sounded to me this whole time he was such a downer about everything. He didn't seem like he was unsure about it not working. He actually seemed like he was pretty sure it wasn't going to work and didn't know how to get out of it almost. I see this train going off the tracks, and I guess I'm in it. I'm riding this train. Okay.
Right. Well, I mean, it makes sense that he's had a backup plan, and I can kind of see why Melyza's been kind of well, you've had a backup plan, and so have you been all in? Because I think that is kind of what their storyline is that Tim is afraid to be all in. He's afraid of getting hurt. He's afraid of being rejected. He's afraid of it not working out. And so he's had this backup plan the whole time. But the problem is that Melyza is also kind of well, I deserve kind of you being all in because you're the one who messed up. So it's kind of well, who's going to kind of give in first? Right. And what I thought was really interesting is that the therapist actually told them what he thought that they should do.
Yes, not yes.
Yes, that's not a thing, right? At least in the US, you do not have therapists that are giving you like, here's what you should do. Because, and I was like thinking about it. It was like, well, maybe it's because like in the US, you would probably get sued if someone was like trying to tell you how to do something and then like something happened, right?
I don't know. I just know, but maybe it's different standards of professional practice. I don't know what kind of, certifications or anything this guy had, but yeah,
right.
Like, because that's even like no therapist tells you like exactly what you should do.
They
That's
don't.
not their job.
Yeah.
That's not their job.
That's funny too, because it's like when I saw a therapist like the first time, I kind of was like, no, please tell me what to do.
Right. And they're like, but it's like it doesn't, because they know, because it doesn't, the actual change doesn't happen unless you are the one who decided what to do.
Yeah,
like it doesn't work if they tell you what to do. They know that.
Yeah. But I also feel like, who wants to be liable for, someone perceiving that, oh, I can pinpoint my life where things went wrong. I did this thing because my therapist told me and,
sure.
Everything went south.
Uh-huh. Sure. All right.
Okay, moving on. I will move on to our other marriage situation, Jenny and Sumit. So the lockdown in India has finally ended and the courthouses are finally open again. So Jenny and Sumit are going to visit a lawyer to figure out what kind of paperwork needs to be filed for a marriage. Sumit claims that he doesn't know what the rules are, so he doesn't know if they will have enough time to file the papers. Jenny gets frustrated because her visa is about to run out and she doesn't want to have to do another visa run, which is where she needs to fly out of the country every 180 days. Jenny is getting the feeling like Sumit is making excuses, and he says that he's feeling pressured. Sumit gives her a card, like a sanitation card, which I've never seen before, that hangs around your neck, and it's supposed to keep the virus away. So Jenny and Sumit make their way to Delhi to see a marriage lawyer. Sumit asks about the Special Marriage Act and what happens if there are objections. The lawyer tells them that it will get very expensive and complicated if anyone objects to their marriage, so he suggests they do an Arya Samaj wedding, which isn't complicated and it's not expensive. So they can even go today and get a marriage certificate and no one can object. Jenny is ecstatic. Sumit tells her that he still wants to talk to his parents first, even if they can't legally object. Sumit still doesn't want to lose his parents, but Jenny just says no, because she doesn't want his parents to change his mind. Jenny is disappointed and frustrated that he won't get married right at this moment. Sumit just wants her support and wants her to go to talk to his parents with him. They are back at the house, and Jenny isn't happy that Sumit wanted to talk to his parents, but he has agreed to a ring ceremony in a couple of days, which makes Jenny happy enough about the situation. Jenny wonders if Sumit is using his parents as an excuse to hide his own hesitations. Sumit's brother comes to visit Jenny and Sumit is hoping that his brother will be able to talk to his parents about their relationship on their behalf. They will not be inviting their parents or telling them about the ring ceremony. Jenny doesn't understand why they have to wait to hear what his parents have to say, and they talk in circles around each other because Jenny can't seem to understand Sumit's logic. Amit and Shri visit, and we find out that they have just recently gotten married. Amit says it was a blessing because they could get married quickly, and they had a reason to keep the wedding very small because they got married as soon as the courthouses opened right after the lockdown. Jenny tells them that the ring ceremony is tomorrow, and Amit and Shri are just completely shocked. Shri thinks that they should tell his parents, but Jenny explains that they don't want the parents to object. Amit thinks they should tell his parents, and Sumit asks if Amit can help with that. Amit says he accepts the relationship, but if he marries Jenny, then, he has to understand that he's going to be cut off, and they cannot be, his parents cannot be convinced, so he needs to be ready for the consequences. Jenny starts to cry and apologizes for her age, and she says that they love each other, and it's a fact, and she just wants people to accept them. Shri covers her face and looks uncomfortable as Jenny just blubbers and sobs on.
Oh, she went all the way out.
Oh, God, yes. It was uncomfortable, and you couldn't even hear what she was saying. She was just like, oh,
they subtitled it, and I was like, I don't know how they got any of that, because it was just...
Oh, my gosh. It was like a dog howling towards
yeah.
the end. Yeah. But I get it. She was upset. So do you think that Sumit is using his parents as an excuse not to rush things?
I don't No, I don't think he does. I think if he thinks if he finagles it just right, he can get to keep Jenny and his parents.
Yes, I think so too.
And he's trying to find out a way to figure out a way to do that. And I don't understand why Jenny doesn't understand why he still wants to tell his parents.
Yeah, I will. Okay, I thought their argument was like getting to be ridiculous because it was just like she was not understanding his logic at all. But I feel like it was a Jenny issue there because it's like. Yeah,
totally. I mean, because at the end of the day, he was like, Jenny, I'm not going to get married without telling my parents first. Like, that's not going to happen.
And she's like, no, but then they'll try to convince you otherwise. And he's like, well, I'm going to do it anyway, but wouldn't it be nice if they would approve? And shouldn't we try anyway? You know, because I get where he's coming from. Like, in the end, he does want to keep his parents if he can. And at least what he says is that even if they don't approve, at least he tried.
Yeah. And at least they'll know about it. It wasn't like he just ran off and it made total sense to me.
Yeah, I know.
And part of it is also especially because I feel like the scenes they've more recently been having with his parents kind of gives that there is like a loving relationship between them, right?
Yeah,
there is a thing there. And it's not the way Jenny had always portrayed it in the previous ones where his parents were just like monsters, pretty much. Monsters who had a maniacal drive to just keep them from getting married, and that's the only thing they cared about was stopping Jenny from being with Sumit.
Yeah, but I also feel like it's easy for Jenny to blame the parents than to accept that Sumit like voluntarily went along with the marriage to his ex-wife.
Sure.
You know, and to say like, oh, his parents forced him into this knowing that he was with me. And, you know, because otherwise she'd have to admit that, you know, Sumit had some free will in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and granted, his free will was out of obligation, but at the end of the day, it was still his choice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it was like, I mean, he could have, I guess, run away. I don't know, like, what kind of options they have.
Yeah.
You know, that's what's always tricky in these, especially when we come to, like, him and, like, Yazan. So,
yeah.
I feel like they should have heard about this Arya Samaj
the other
before.
Marriage. It's like, oh my gosh, the easy way, the hard way. It's like, why would anyone pick the hard way?
Right. So, okay, so it seems to me, what I gathered from the conversation, trying to, like, read between the lines, was that this Arya Samaj is a religion. And they were trying to get more or less the Special Marriage Act or whatever. That is more or less a civil marriage, right? It's a non-religious marriage. And so the state can put whatever they want on it, right? They put all these requirements and announcements. You have to do this and that. And that's why it's so complicated. Mm-hmm. But if you get a religion that will just marry you and say these two people are married, then you're good. And that Arya Samaj is like a religion that you don't have to belong to get married in their church is what or temple or whatever is what I gathered.
Yeah, because she said they didn't have to convert. And even at this point, I feel like Jenny would be like, sure, I'm converting. Sure. I'll
Hindu.
be that.
I'll be Hindu, yeah. I'll do it. Whatever it is, yeah. So, I don't know. I just think it's funny how we keep every week we learn just a little bit more about like India's marriage laws. Like just a little bit more like, oh, this is a new wrinkle to the marriage law, especially because this dude was just like, hey, I tell everybody to do this. Yeah, let's go do that. That's not
it does seem funny that they've never heard of the other option. It does make you kind of wonder, like, if it were here, most people would just do a little bit of internet research. But I mean, like, you know, it doesn't mean that every country has like everything online, you know, trying to find all that stuff.
Totally. And well, if you listen to the lawyer, he's like, well, yeah, every lawyer you talk to wants you to do it the complicated way, obviously.
Because they want to get paid.
They want to get paid.
Yeah. No, that was kind of funny too. And what I also think is interesting is that Jenny was just like, why do we even need to see a lawyer? She was like, wanted to skip all that. Remember, like at the beginning, and Sumit's like, well, I don't know all the rules, so let's just talk to the lawyer first, and then we can see what our options are. She's like, well, let's just do this other thing, you know. So it's kind of like, yeah, I'm siding with Sumit here because clearly he doesn't know everything.
Especially because she had been like, you're just trying to put it off by talking to a lawyer. We shouldn't even be talking to this lawyer. You're just trying to make the process long.
Guess what? It just sped it up by 30 days.
Yes.
And a lot less money, which, you know, they're always worried about their money.
Also, I will say this too before we go away. This is my public. I'm not an expert, but those cards don't do anything. Those are not real things. They are total, like, a ripoff.
Yes. So I will say, I wanted to throw that in their life lesson. So I actually did a little bit of research on them. They're actually banned. You're not allowed to sell them on Amazon. There was something that came out, like the EPA came out with something, but I was still able to find them on Amazon. So I think people are just like selling them illegally and just hoping that they don't get caught. But there's like completely, I think the scientific findings on them is that they're completely substantiated.
It makes no sense. What mechanism did this card have for keeping a virus?
If you think about sickness, how it works, how is someone sneezing on your face? This card is going to somehow form a force field around that. Like, it makes no sense.
Yeah, it made absolutely no sense. Like, they were like, it was like almost like a bug spray.
Yes.
With the virus.
Yes.
It's like, that's not how it works.
But that, to me, makes more sense. You know, because bugs can choose to land on you or not. A sneeze cannot choose to land on you or not.
Right. That's the whole thing with this virus. Like, people who think it's sentient. I'm not going to be scared of it. Well, it doesn't care if you're scared, man.
Right.
Like,
it's just going to happen. Yeah.
All right. So let's go to Devin and Jihoon because they were super short. Mm-hmm. All right. So Devin starts by Skyping with her parents, Steve and Elicia, who are coming to Korea for the wedding. Elicia is still holding a grudge over the Drusilla street gate incident where Jihoon didn't chase her fast enough, I guess. Devin tells Jihoon that they are coming, and Jihoon tells her that he suffers from EP syndrome or Elicia Phobia.
It's too funny.
And it was kind of funny. I mean, he's funny. 3 days later, Jihoon, his mom Jung, Drusilla, and Devin on their way to the airport to pick up her family, Steve, Elicia, and Devin's sister. And then Jihoon colorfully lets us know how nervous being around Elicia makes him. And then basically everybody gets in the van. They're coming for the wedding. The wedding, I assume, is going to be next week. Everybody gets in the van and, you know, they do the standard, I don't know about this Jihoon. He has a lot to prove to me.
God.
Although we do learn that Jihoon is the same age as Devin's dad was when he married Elicia. And that's about it. That's all that really happened. So I don't even know what any questions they have there. I mean, I don't know. Is she really that intimidating?
Okay, so two things that, you know, I was really annoyed with Elicia. She says, he needs to earn my trust. And it's like, okay, so we kind of talk about this in relationships, you know, usually after a cheating incident or lying, right?
Right.
It's like, how can you really earn back trust? Because that's only something you can really get with time. And it's really not so much that you can prove the negative so much as you can only prove you being right. Mm-hmm. And so especially for someone who's more of a third party, it's like, how is Jihoon going to prove to Elicia that he can be trusted? I mean, to me, it's like Drusilla hasn't died yet, so doesn't he get points for that?
So far, so good, right?
Yeah, the kids they're both alive.
It's also this weird entitlement of the grandparents. Mm-hmm. They'd be like, well, he has to, he has to earn Devin's trust. Your trust doesn't actually matter.
Right. No, I absolutely agree with you, because that was the second thing I was going to ask is like, why does she think that it's so important that she gives her blessing? Devin has never said anything about, you know, like, oh, well, if my parents don't give their blessing, then, you know, maybe I shouldn't marry him. She's never said anything like that. But Elicia seems to think she's so important that, you know, it's like she has to give her blessing in order for this marriage to happen. And also, newsflash, they're already married.
Right. It's not even, oh yes, we run this situation again. This is the same we had with, Libby and Andre last time.
Yes,
like, we won't have our second fake wedding of that thing. Yeah, but it's just that I don't get it, because this is not the only couple it comes up in where they just like, well, is this good enough for my granddaughter? And it's like, that's actually up to your daughter to decide, isn't it? And not you.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And speaking of which, that segues pretty nicely into Baby and Ari. So Ari and Biniyam are at the hotel, and Ari is making small talk with Binny and tells him that she doesn't want to fight because she wants to have a good day with her parents. Ari wants to make a good impression and wants her parents to approve of Biniyam. Fred, Ari's dad, tells us that he doesn't travel much, so everything is very new to him. Fred is surprised by the home surrounded by barbed wire. Biniyam takes the family to the capital city market. Fred tells us that he didn't expect Ethiopia to be so underdeveloped, and he wonders where the kids will play. Biniyam goes to pick out a chicken, and he accidentally drops it and has to chase after it. The chicken guy is getting ready to slaughter the chicken, but Ari and her mom protest, and they don't want to see another animal killed for their sake. Ari's mom asks what is different, and Ari just spills the truth and tells them that it's been difficult and lonely. Ari says that she feels a bit guilty because she promised she wouldn't air their relationship problems in front of other people, especially her parents, but pretty much she just wants someone to side with her and she wants backup. So Lydia tells Baby that, he needs to communicate. And Fred says that if Baby communicates, then it gives Ari an opportunity to accept things he has to say and support him. Ari takes her parents to see their apartment, and she's nervous about what they will think. Binny thinks that the apartment is very luxurious. Ari's mom is freaking out just based on the small refrigerator. Oh, I'm sorry, I called her Lydia before. Her name's Janice. Janice thinks that they need a bigger apartment, especially with all the stuff she has brought them. Janice expects a bigger space and a place with a garden or a park nearby. Ari points out that to get a place like that, it's very expensive because the expats drive up the prices. Janice says that, they could probably help them out financially, but she's going to need more details on Biniyam's income. Ari tells us that Biniyam is an artist and she supports him 100%, but Janice and Fred are concerned about the lack of stability in their finances. Fred didn't get the sense that Baby was able to meet the needs of their family of 3. Ari's family goes to meet Biniyam's sisters, Wish and Mimi. Janice asks his sisters how they think Baby and Ari are doing with the baby, and they say they're trying. When asked how the relationship is, Wish says that Ari gets mad easily. Ari gets defensive and says that, she's left alone a lot. The sisters say that it's not in their culture for women to yell and shout, and if there's a problem, they either talk to their partner or they basically tell on them to the guy's parents. Janice defends Ari in the interview, saying that there are 2 sides to every story, and that Ari can definitely have a temper, but it's not for no reason. Mimi and Wish think that, Ari needs to calm down and not treat Biniyam like a child. They think his patience is limited, and she will be sorry the day that his patience is gone. Ari tells Janice that Avi will be baptized. Janice points out that, they're being baptized into a faith. Fred is quiet the whole time, but then tells us in an interview that he just assumed that Avi would be raised Jewish. Ari says that she doesn't want mention of hell in Avi's life, and if she catches them, she will go back to the U.S. Wish says she's starting to sound like Biniyam's ex, and Ari takes major offense to the comment. Fred thinks that they appear to be in love, but there's a lot of uncertainty, and he's worried, but he hopes that love can win out. Ari tells Biniyam that, what they need to do is just to prove them all wrong. All right, so I was kind of, about Janice defending Ari. So do you agree with Janice? Do you think that Ari is justified in her temper or outbursts because they're based in something that's logical?
It depends. And a lot of this is cultural, right? Because, we've had that, well, who was it? Somebody before, well, I'm Italian, so I do that, which I always hate. I hate when people, when people justify their thing by saying their ethnicity beforehand. But I think to some people and some families, they wouldn't even consider what Ari does to be outburst, right? And they're being like, oh, she's yelling. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. This is kind of ridiculous. So I think it's definitely a cultural divide there. And I do take Janice's side, where if it's something that she cares about and is right, then she's justified in expressing herself and not going through these weird back channels. That's something you give up.
Telling on him.
Yeah, telling on him to his parents, that weird thing.
Well, first of all, his parents don't exist. Remember, he was orphaned.
Oh, sure.
So
right. So I don't know who she's supposed to
option.
tell. The older brother. I don't know whoever's the patriarch of the family at this point. Right. Somebody has the authority over him to say, "Oh no, you need to stop working. Oh, you need to go to work. Oh, you need to take care of it. But she also knows whoever they tell, because she's on this cultural other side, the things she actually cares about are kind of going against his culture. So like he needs to do more things. He needs to change more diapers and stuff. If she talks to somebody in their culture, they're like, no, he doesn't. Come on now. That's not real.
Well, the thing that I think is universally true across all cultures, it doesn't matter, is that you are going to, as the saying goes, attract more bees with honey. You know, like I get that her, whatever she has to say is justified, whatever she's angry about. But if she really wants her message to come across and have a productive conversation, having these kinds of outbursts where she's yelling, you know, even though it's more culturally or socially accepted in other cultures other than, you know, Biniyam's, it's like that doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, you have a productive conversation where things change. You know, like I think that she could really work on having a more productive and meaningful conversation with him. And it requires her to have a little bit of self-control. But it frustrates me when people kind of use like that as an excuse. Like, well, like it's perfectly normal where I grew up for us to yell at each other when, you know, we're upset about something doesn't make it right and doesn't like help the situation either. So yes, I'm okay with it being justified, but you know, it's just the presentation. She has something to work on too. And I also get that, you know, Ari is hormonal, like emotional outbursts are going to happen. Like, that's fine. I'm not saying she needs to be absolutely perfect. If she yells and screams because she's really frustrated one day, sure, let it out. But at the same time, it's kind of like she can't act like she has a right to do that and to treat someone that way. And she also needs to take responsibility for her own actions.
Right. I mean, and part of this is I kind of also see, because, you know, we're both teachers. And I've definitely had less than proud moments in the classroom when I like yell and stuff, right?
Yes.
And I just, it's so frustrating because sometimes, especially if you do it sparingly, it works, right? And you're like, I asked you guys nicely. I tried. I begged. I was reasonable time and time and time. And then I screamed and you did it. And it's like, right? I feel like she kind of feels the same way with him a little bit. Right? Where she talks to him and she says something nice. He goes, okay, yeah, we don't want to fight about it. Yes, we'll do that. And then he doesn't do it. Right? And then he still goes to work and he's like, you clearly are not listening to what I'm saying.
Right.
Like, and I get that gets super frustrating. And it's like, we're to the point, well, trying to have a reasonable conversation with you didn't work because you don't actually have a conversation. You just say, until I stop talking. So, and so I don't know how you respond. I agree that, you know, doing it in this way and the outbursts are not effective here. But it's like, but trying to do it the reasonable way requires the other person to engage in a reasonable conversation with you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I absolutely relate to what you're saying. You know, it is kind of funny. It's like if my students know I'm mad, all of a sudden it's kind of like, oh my gosh, she's mad, you know, and it's like, finally acting right. But, you know, it's sad that you don't want to feel like you have to be like that. Because you're right. I don't feel good yelling at my students.
No, absolutely not.
Getting frustrated to the point where I see red.
Yeah, absolutely not. It's not a good day when that happens.
No, definitely not. You know what also I found too, just as a random side note, is if my students think I'm really sick, they're also extra good and nice.
Oh, that is true. But now it's going to be like, now, I don't know if
now it's going to be like, oh my God, keep your distance.
You have the Rona, get back.
Yeah, but it's like if they could tell I was like getting over a cold or something like that, they were always so good.
That's true.
Yeah.
I definitely like when my voice was out, which by the way never happened before I was a teacher. My voice would just like I lose my voice completely, and then like they're always quiet because they can't listen to what I say. It is
really funny, but yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So that leaves me with Brittany
gosh,
and Yazan as always. So we start where we left off last week. Brittany is trashed and has drunk dialed Yazan to pick her and Angela up from the bar. Yazan's first move when they get in the car is to try to cover up Brittany's cleavage with her coat. He says that it's because it's cold. Of course, it's because it's cold. He says that he is taking her to the barber shop that he's been working at. And it's pretty obvious to him, even based on her behavior and smell, that she is drunk. Because of this and a few other things, he's taking things pretty easy. He's not really getting angry because he knows that any wrong word might start a fight and he doesn't want to create any new problems. He says that he wants to explain things to her because she doesn't know anything about the issues between him and his family. But instead of dropping that bomb on her while she's smashed, he takes her to see his job. When they get near, Brittany decides that now is the time to cut Yazan's hair. So he kind of sits down, I'll sit in the barber chair. But as soon as she reaches for the clippers, he backs out. Whoa, you're actually going to cut my hair? He backs out of a drunk haircut, but she does manage to get a couple of locks snipped.
Oh, God.
Angela, along with the rest of us, is very confused about this whole situation. So the next day, Angela tries to get... Oh, I'm sorry. This is still in the barbershop after she attacked him with scissors and cut his hair. Angela tries to get the conversation to go somewhere productive so they can talk about their issues. And Yazan says that he still wants her to move to Jordan and marry him. Brittany kind of condescendingly asks if he thinks she's going to convert to Islam, heavily implying that the answer is no. He says that he doesn't care about that now, but he still doesn't understand why she wants to wait for the marriage. She says she wants to get to know each other better, like maybe a year or so. And he agrees to that timetable, even saying it's a good idea. Brittany likes what she hears, but fears that his family will change his mind back. The next day, Angela, the voice of reason, tells Brittany that they have to talk about what happened last night with Yazan. Brittany says that she, again, likes what she hears, but he does that to everyone. She kind of says he tells everybody what they want to hear. Angela feels that Yazan was like a totally different guy than she had described. And so today, Brittany is on her way out. She's going to see the apartment that Yazan got for them. And she wants to know once and for all where they stand. He's excited to show her all the changes he's made with his life, including, all the crap that went down with his family. She gets there and he shows her around the apartment, even offering her the master bedroom if she wants to stay there. But she says she likes to cuddle, which is a new word for Yazan. She demonstrates what cuddling is, and he says they can do that when they're married. Brittany says that she will stay in a hotel until the one issue she had, the leaky shower, is fixed. Then she's fine staying there. So then Yazan goes back on what he said the day before. It's not acceptable to him just to have a girlfriend, and he doesn't want to wait a year to get married. So if they want to be together, it'll have to be a marriage, and it'll have to be in about a month. He doesn't need her to convert to Islam anymore, mainly because his family doesn't matter right at this point. But anyway, he said he wants to get married in a month, which really puts Brittany on edge. She tells him that she needs to think about it, and he needs to be honest with his family about the relationship, especially the fact that she's not going to convert. At this point, he starts to bring in some of the heavy implications of what she's asking for. He says that what she's asking for, to live out and about and standing on their own 2 feet and everything, is dangerous. Because under the rules he lives in, disrespect for the family can cause someone to, he says, enter for your life. Brittany is confused, and Yazan knows he's not going to be able to explain sufficiently. So he says he wants to get a translator and talk to her later about it with the translator.
Finally, a smart suggestion.
I know. Finally, after all this. Yeah. So, so we had thought, what's going on here? Why is Brittany so callous about these family issues? Mm-hmm. And it turns out that she doesn't know about them at all, right?
Yes, at all. He said that he couldn't adequately tell her, and so he just chooses not to tell her anything at all. That just seems crazy. So is that
a bad move on his part, right? What would have been the better option?
Well, I kind of feel like, just in general, this episode made me feel more like I understood why she thinks everything is going the way that it's going.
Right.
Because, some of the things that she says, like, oh, Yazan will say one thing and then like he'll change his mind. And we've only really ever seen him say one thing. But he very clearly said to her this time, like, okay, I'll agree to a year, 2 years, sure, why not? And then literally the next day is like 1 month. We can get married in 1 month. And it's like, because, and quite honestly, this is so bad. I kind of feel like it's not his parents. It's because, well, his religion. And so he's like, I can't keep it in my pants for longer than a month. So we're going to have to get married like in a month because I want to have sex.
Yes. And I think beyond the sex, definitely yes. Right. But he also is like, listen, I know what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to walk around town with your, like, he kind of was thinking about what's that year going to look like. Right. And part of it was he was in the mode the night before when she was drunk of just telling her whatever she wanted to hear because she was drunk and he didn't want to fight. Right.
Yeah. He didn't want to lose his head with those scissors in her hands.
Right. And so he was like, whatever. So, but he was like, okay, but yes, she's going to, what's going to happen in that year? Well, she's going to want to have sex. And she's going to want to walk around town like arm in arm. And she's going to want to do all this stuff that is like completely unacceptable. And he's like, if she's going to want to do all that, we need to be married. Like that's not going to work. I can't. And the way he put it was actually, I thought, pretty decent. He was like, we don't do girlfriends here. Like that's not a thing. And so, and that's what she wants to be as a girlfriend, which is fine if that she was back in the States.
Right. True. Yeah. Okay. Can Brittany even cut hair when she's sober? Is that what she does?
I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question. I would need to see no, I wouldn't. Yeah, I need to see the clippers in somebody's hand. I don't trust anybody drunk with clippers. That's just a terrible choice.
Yeah, that seemed like an awful idea to begin with. But even if she was sober, I was like, well, does she cut hair? Does she know?
I don't know. Because Yazan, he has some hair now. I'm not saying it's good looking hair, or I'm not focusing on the style of it, but he has very involved haircuts.
Oh yes, they're very structured.
He is a man who cares about his hair, and to have her just pick up the clippers, like
yeah, I'm surprised he let her. I don't know, but he definitely seemed like very into her. It is kind of funny. Like I don't know if it's because the cameras are there. But when he's on camera talking to Brittany, he just seems like so whipped, to be honest, right?
Yeah,
it just seems like he'll agree to anything.
Yes, but it's funny because it's the total opposite of every time we hear him on the phone.
Yes,
and he doesn't know he's being filmed with her. He's just screaming at her, which is the same thing that Angela got. She was like, "Where is this dude that's always yelling at you? Nonsense! Like he wasn't there last night.
Yeah.
Like the guy I saw was reasonable and fine, and was like." Putting up with your drunk ass. So
yeah, it does kind of make me wonder. It's like, what is the true Yazan? I would think like the worst version, right?
Yeah, that's usually what you go for, right? The one that's not putting on a show for the cameras. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that's kind of scary. All right. So that's pretty much our couples, right?
That's everybody. That's right.
Okay. Who was your student of the week?
I actually went with Yazan just for being reasonable.
Funny.
The whole time. Like
that's so funny. I have him as my dunce. I think that might be the first time we have a student of the week and dunce at the same time.
I just thought, I thought he handled her being drunk well. Right? Because I was expecting him to be mad and yell like he did when she had the tequila at the first episode.
Yeah.
Right? He does, the translator thing, saying, no, I'm not going to explain this right. I'm going to stop and get the translator. Kind of showing, it's like the first time he's like shown like any kind of forethought or awareness of what's going on. And so it certainly is a most improved type award for student of the week. Rather than maybe actual student of the week. It's a relative award.
Well, that's funny because we'll get to my student of the week in a second. The reason why I had Yazan as dunce is because I saw exactly what Brittany was telling us. You know, is that Yazan, there are two sides to this guy, you know, and it's just like, quit freaking changing your mind. No wonder she is confused. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So my student of the week, I'm going to go with Fred.
Guess what?
Dunce is Fred.
Yep.
That's so funny. Okay. Because, I actually paid a lot of attention to Fred specifically because it's like we get a lot of these people on the show, Americans, that are first time traveling to other countries, and they have very specific ideas about what the country should look like. Like, for example, Robin visiting Tim and Melyza in Colombia. Robin just being like, oh, I thought there was gonna be like, drug dealers and cartels everywhere, and like thinking it was gonna be all run down. I think that Fred had a very diplomatic way of saying everything without it shining in a negative light. Like, what he was saying was like, oh, it's underdeveloped, right? Mm-hmm. That is absolutely fair to say it's an underdeveloped country, right? Or like an area location is underdeveloped. He wasn't like, oh, this is all run down and dilapidated. It's like one of these things that we have negative feelings about. Even when he was talking about, his feelings on their relationship, he was not like Janice. He wasn't like butting in. He, was very like positive about things. And maybe it is a sliding scale, but I would say for someone who is not well traveled, I thought that he did not have the typical like, stereotype of like the ugly American, like being judgy with everything.
I mean, okay, so my dunce was broadly. It was like I gave it jointly to Fred and Janice.
Okay.
Because of it just came across to me as like I don't think you get that many points for diplomatically saying you think the country's a shithole. Like and which is that's the way it came across to me, is he was trying to find a way, how do I politely say that this place is trash and not good enough for my daughter? Like, how do I do that? And that seemed to me that's the way his like whole behavior came across.
Well, because the other thing too is he didn't make the assumption that it was going to be an underdeveloped country, right? He was thinking it was going to be a different way.
It wasn't as bad as Janice, who was like, you have morphine in the hospital? Oh my goodness. Like, yeah. But so yeah, it was the opposite type of thing, and I think part of that came from maybe from Janice's like setting the expectations of saying the hospital is good and fine. But like and so it goes with a lot of stuff. The way like it bothers me, the chicken thing really bothered me, right? The fact that they weren't just like, I don't want to see him kill the chicken, because Biniyam was like, oh yeah, totally, you don't want to see it. We'll come back later. And they're like, no, don't come back later and get the chicken. He's like, well, how the hell are you going to eat the chicken? And they're like, well, we don't want it. It was like, he was like, you've eaten chicken before. Like, chickens have been killed for you.
Fred was not involved in that. That was Janice and Ari. Nope.
That was Janice and Ari. Yeah. And I wasn't crazy about, Fred came off as kind of entitled to me for everything. Especially, we talked about, like, with Elicia, they definitely said the phrase, is this good enough for my grandson? He's like, like.
I feel like that's once again like being headed by Janice.
He literally said, is it good enough for my grandson? Fred said that. And because especially when he was talking about, I want there to be a little garden that they can go out and play on and things like that. And the way I don't know if you noticed that, but when they mentioned the baptism, he didn't say anything, but veins were bulging out of his forehead. Like, he was extremely angry about that. And like, I don't know why he just made that assumption that the baby would be raised Jewish.
Yeah.
Like, why did that happen? Like, why was that assumption already in his head? So I think they did a better job hiding like the kind of ugliness of it, because they're rich people and they, aren't going to be, not even rich people, but like classier people, more educated people, because they're better than like Libby and Andre's family, but still like, this isn't good enough for us.
Well, I think the reason why Fred made the assumption that the baby would be raised Jewish, because in Jewish culture, it's whatever the mom is, right? So you're only considered like...
Right. But I don't know, because that's nothing to me, but he understands that in Ethiopian culture, it's whatever the dad is, right? Like, so, like, it's like, and especially because to me, and Ariella has said it, she's not really a practicing Jew.
Yeah.
Right. And so I don't understand why you think she would bring a kid up in a faith that she doesn't even really adhere to that much. Like, except for the mentioning hell, because for some reason that puts her over the edge. The idea
gosh,
of
yes.
telling a
She
baby
gets
about
really
hell
upset.
is very triggering for her.
Yeah. Okay, I would also like to point out, as much as I defended Fred, that I actually had a blank student of the week because I was going to pull a Tom and be like, I'll see how I feel when we get to that part.
We'll see what the universe reveals for you.
Yes, so apparently it revealed Fred, even though Mr. O was like, no Fred.
No, Fred. Did not like Fred this week.
Right. What about your life lesson?
All right, my life lesson is like, this goes to Tim. If you're struggling to save your relationship, it's really important to be honest with each other and honest about yourself behind your actions, because he is kind of holding this, maybe I'll go back to the States, and I'm not exactly clear why. And I'm not sure he's clear why, because at the beginning he had mentioned like, I need to go back for my visa, right? My visa is going to expire. And he never mentioned that again. Then I need a job. He kind of mentioned he's not really clear about what it is, why it is he wants to do the things he's doing. And it's like, you're not going to gain clarity if you're, taking actions that you're not sure why you're making them.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so my life lesson actually applies to a bunch of different couples this episode. It says, you should be upfront with your partner how much your parents' approval actually means to you. Because I feel like it's unfair to blindside your partner with a requirement that sometimes is outside of their control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
sure.
So, yeah, I kind of feel like that applies to Jenny and Sumit, Jihoon and Devin, a little bit of Tim and Melyza, Brittany and Yazan kind of behind the scenes.
Ari and Biniyam.
Yep, Ari and Biniyam. It's like parent approval. Yeah, it's fine if your parents' approval are important to you, but, you should let your partner know because, especially in a situation like, who was it? Was it Devin and Jihoon? Like, does that make a difference? Like,
right. And it's one of those tricky things too, because sometimes you didn't think it made a difference right until they didn't approve. And then you're like,
right.
oh, that actually makes a difference to me. Like,
yeah, definitely. So it also kind of makes me wonder, like, is it that the parents don't approve and you're also looking for an excuse to get out of it?
Uh-huh. Yeah, sometimes the approval is just like, oh, this is like, it becomes the issue that they don't approve becomes something that you're like, oh, maybe that is a bigger deal than I thought it was.
Yes.
Like,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that wraps up this episode. So I think we're still trucking along, right?
I know. It didn't say like season finale. You know how it always does. So I guess we got at least 2 more episodes, right?
Well, if they have a tell-all, who knows?
But usually, yeah. Oh my goodness, we're gonna have
an
overlap.
episode and then probably like a 3-part tell-all before.
I'm sure
before the new season comes on.
I just feel like they're going to overlap us again, and we're going to have those like super long. We're going to have to do a super long podcast that covers like both.
Oh gosh, I am not really looking forward to this season of 90 Day, mostly because
it's too many redos. Man.
Yes,
there's too many known people.
It's like I want a fresh crop of people.
Yeah, I want fresh blood. Exactly.
Yeah, agreed. But I mean, I do have to say, I am excited for Zied to be back because.
Oh, would you love Zied so much?
We love Zied.
We love Zied so much.
So much because he brings so many quotable things. So much. So. And he also brought along the best screenshot, like your favorite screenshot. Oh, yeah,
my favorite one.
Is ride or die
into
the desert.
Yeah, so that is a fun one. And again, it's only the second time. It's the ones that are on like 3 times.
Oh, gosh, yes. You're like, enough.
Right.
All right. Yep. So we'll see you all next week then with next week's episode.
That's right. See you then.
Right. See you then. Okay,
Bye.
bye.